So let's talk about artificial intelligence. I mean, it's everywhere, right? In our phones, our cars, our jobs. It's this incredible technology that can learn, adapt, and even make decisions on its own. But here's the thing. Our legal system, which was built over centuries around human actions and human intentions, well, it's playing a frantic game of catch-up. So today, we're going to dive right into that. Welcome to AI's legal minefield.
Okay, just picture this for a second. An AI crashes your self-driving car. Then, that same afternoon, some other AI writes an absolute banger of a hit song. So, who pays for the car damage? And who owns the rights to that song? I mean, who do you sue? The car company, the person who wrote the code, and who gets to collect the royalties? These aren't just weird hypotheticals anymore. This is the reality our courts are wrestling with right now.
All right, so before we go any further, let's make sure we're all on the same page with a super quick definition. When we say AI, what we're really talking about is computer tech that tries to act like a human brain. It plows through massive piles of data, learns the patterns, and then adapts what it's doing to get better at a task. The key thing here is it's not just following a rigid set of instructions, it's evolving.
First up, let's wade into the world of commerce. For a long time, we've had a pretty clear system for when products hurt people. It's called product liability. You know, if your toaster catches on fire, you know who's on the hook. But what happens when the product is an autonomous bot that's making its own decisions? Who gets the blame then?
So on one hand, you've got your traditional liability. It's pretty straightforward. A product fails, and you can almost always follow the breadcrumbs back to a human mistake somewhere, a flaw in the design, an error in manufacturing, something. But AI liability? That's a whole different beast. Its decision process is what we call a black box. We see the information that goes in, and we see the decision that comes out. But the why in the middle can be so incredibly complex that not even its own creators can fully explain it. So how in the world do you assign blame for a decision that no one can explain?
And this is where it gets really fascinating. Check out this quote. It comes from a legal case where a motorcyclist was injured by a self-driving Chevy Bolt. And get this, the car maker, GM, actually admitted in court that the car itself, the Bolt, had a duty to use reasonable care. Just think about what that means for a second. For the first time, we saw a legal argument that treated the AI not as a simple tool, but as the actor with a legal responsibility. Now, the case ultimately settled, but wow, did it open a brand new door.
Okay, let's shift gears from the corporate world to something a lot more personal. Your data and your creative work. AI runs on data, and a lot of the time it's our data. And it can also create art and music that feels completely human. Well, this is setting up a massive collision course with our laws on privacy and intellectual property.
And this brings us to the huge fairness problem. You know, we all kind of hope that AI will be perfectly objective, free from messy human biases. But where does it learn from? It learns from us, from all the data we've generated for decades. And guess what? That data is chock full of our biases. So the AI doesn't just learn facts, it learns our historical prejudices. And then it can put those prejudices on steroids, creating discriminatory results at a scale the law was designed to prevent.
Then you've got the purpose problem. See, legally, when you give a company your data, they're supposed to only use it for the specific reason you agreed to. But an AI's whole job is to find surprising new connections in that data. Maybe an algorithm discovers that people who buy a certain kind of cheese are also more likely to default on a loan. You certainly never consented to your grocery list being used to decide your creditworthiness, but the AI went and found a connection anyway.
And this creates this fundamental tug-of-war. On one side, you have privacy laws that are all about data minimization, the idea that you should only collect the absolute minimum data you need. But on the other side, you have AI, which is basically a data monster. The more data you feed it, the smarter and more powerful it gets. These two principles are just pulling in completely opposite directions, and it's a massive challenge for companies trying to innovate.
Okay, so what about when an AI actually creates something totally new? Who owns it? Well, right now, US law is pretty blunt about it. A big court case called Thaler v. Perlmutter confirmed the rule. To get copyright protection, you need a human author. So if a piece of art is generated 100% by an AI, with no significant creative input from a person, it can't be copyrighted. It just falls into the public domain for anyone to use. A machine can be a creator, but legally speaking, it can't be an author.
All right, let's take this to the office. AI in the workplace isn't some sci-fi concept anymore. It's here. It's scanning resumes, analyzing video interviews, and even managing employees. And as you can probably guess, this is creating a whole new universe of legal risks for employers.
And that black box problem is back, this time in HR. So imagine you're a company. A job applicant sues you for discrimination.
The law says you have to provide a clear, legitimate, non-discriminatory reason for not hiring them. But if the decision was spit out by some complex AI algorithm, you might genuinely have no idea what the reason was. You can't explain the AI's logic, and that leaves you legally wide open.
So let's just walk through how this can go sideways. The AI scans resumes for keywords. Then it analyzes a video interview, looking at things like your tone of voice and facial expressions. After all that, it ranks all the candidates, and the human recruiter only ever sees the top few. Now, what if you have a brilliant, highly qualified applicant who just happens to have a speech impediment? The AI might misinterpret their speech patterns, flag them as lacking confidence, and automatically toss them out of the running. A great candidate? Gone, before a human ever even laid eyes on their resume.
And the risks go way beyond just hiring. When you put physical robots in a factory or warehouse, you're introducing new safety issues. And if an accident does happen, that black box problem makes it really hard to figure out what went wrong. It also might mean that an injured worker could sue the AI manufacturer directly, which is a new twist. And on a bigger scale, if a company brings in automation and it leads to mass layoffs, they have to follow specific laws, like the WARN Act, that require giving workers plenty of notice.
So, with all these massive challenges, you might be thinking the legal system is just totally frozen, right? Well, not exactly. It might be slow, but it's not standing still. We are starting to see some real, concrete steps as courts and regulators start demanding transparency and accountability.
Here is a perfect, real-world example. This isn't a proposal. This is a rule on the books right now in Missouri. Several courts there now require that if a lawyer uses generative AI to help them research or write a legal document, they must disclose it to the court. They have to name the specific AI tool they used and explain how they used it. This is the legal system drawing a line in the sand. It's saying, we will not allow a black box in our courtroom. You, the human lawyer, are ultimately responsible. Which leaves us with this final massive question that sits underneath everything else. For centuries, our laws have really only had two categories for things: people and property. You're either a person with rights, or you're a thing that is owned. AI doesn't fit neatly in either box, does it? So what do? Is it just a very sophisticated tool, like a hammer with a brain? Or does its autonomy, its ability to learn and act, require us to create a third category, something entirely new? How we decide to answer that question is going to shape not just the future of technology, but the future of our entire society.